Hey everybody, what's going on? I'm Frozen, and today I want to talk about one of my favorite pieces of backpacking gear. That's got to be my Fancee Feast alcohol stove. Coming in at a half an ounce or roughly 14 grams, this guy is pretty darn fuel efficient, and it's just so much fun just to build your own piece of gear. So after 4 years, probably over 200 boils on this guy, it's finally time to replace the carbon felt or the wicking material on this stove. And I figured while I was doing that, I may as well just show how I build the complete setup. So that's what we're gonna do. Like I said, this is about 4 years old, and I'm just now finally starting to see some performance issues with this. Now, I could simply just replace the carbon felt on this, but I've had a lot of interest on the channel recently discussing this stove. So let me talk about where this stove came from, because I sure as heck didn't come up with this design. I did modify the design to fit my needs though. So first of all, Zelf came out with this stove. He called it the Zelf stove, and he used a fiberglass wicking material before somebody figured out that you could use carbon felt. I don't know who exactly figured out that you could use carbon felt on this as the wicking material, but I'm glad that person did, because this turned out, like I said, to be one of my favorite pieces of gear. Now, I also watched a channel called the Hiram Cook channel, where the guy literally tests out different stove, and it is just so weird to admit, but it's really fun to watch him boil water. I don't know why. There's just something about it that just gets me going. I don't know. Hiram, if you ever watch this video, come out with your channel again, buddy. We are all missing your videos on boiling water. But he discusses some key points about this stove that you're going to want to consider that we will touch on in this video. That being said, let's look at the materials that you're going to need and the tools you need to get started. For this project, you're going to need 3 materials. One is going to be a wet cat food can. You might have one of these laying around the house, or maybe you know someone with a cat. That's how you get it. If not, you can just get these guys for like $1 at any grocery store. Next thing you're going to need is a small tomato paste can. Now, this can needs to fit inside of the wet cat food can. I prefer the small Hunt's tomato pastes. They work great, and they're easy to find at any grocery store. Third item you're going to need, a little bit harder to find, but I'll leave a video link in the description below. So these are carbon felt squares or plumber's felt. You can find these at pretty much any Home Depot, but again, look in the video description. You can get a 12 by 12 piece of this stuff for about $10, and you can make probably about 20 stoves out of it. For tools, you're going to want a piece of 120 grit sandpaper or a grater, a Sharpie to mark your cut lines, a heavy-duty hole punch. Again, I'll leave some links in the video description. Pair of scissors, a tape measure, a drill with a very small drill bit, and a hacksaw, or if you have it laying around, a Dremel. Okay, so to kick off this build, we're gonna make sure our cat food can is nice and clean. And what I like to do is I like to cut it down for 3-season use. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this plumber's tape, or if you have some electrical tape laying around, you can actually just lay the Sharpie on top of that, and you can get the can pretty close to where you're gonna need it. You can use the full can if you're gonna use it for winter, but to save a little weight and just to make it less volume, less space in your pack, I like to cut it down a little bit. Just trace the line around, spin the can, and you can see approximately where you're gonna want it, just a little over half of the can. After that, you're gonna take your Dremel or your hacksaw, whatever you wanna use, and you're just gonna cut it down nice and smooth. Don't forget your safety glasses. This was the first time I used this Dremel, and immediately I realized it was underpowered, so I'll be switching back and forth between this guy and the hacksaw. After you cut the can, there's going to be some rough edges on it. You're going to want to take your sandpaper, just lay it flat, and just kind of do a circular motion with this guy. Get all those rough edges down so you don't cut yourself. Now, what we're going to do next is take the tomato paste can and lay it face down into the cat food can. So the bottom of the can should be facing up toward you. Now once you take the label off, you're gonna see some ridges on the can. This is where Hiram Cook's advice on his channel came in very handy for me. Based on his testing, he found that the best boil time was a tomato paste can that was cut about 1 inch higher than the cat food can. So find 1 inch higher, mark the ridge of the tomato paste can with a Sharpie, and that's where you're gonna make your cut mark. You can see at this point I just kind of gave up on the Dremel and just decided to use the hacksaw. Now that we have our tomato paste can, we're gonna again file off the rough edges with the sandpaper. Circular motion works out well here. Just get those rough edges done. Second, we're gonna take our carbon felt and our bottom of our cat food can and figure out the approximate distance by wrapping the felt around the can and making our cut. You can also hold the can down there while you get your scissors and find the approximate width. You might need to trim it after you're done, but it really doesn't matter. This $10 piece of carbon felt, again, should last you about 20 or so stoves. Put the carbon felt inside, and if you have any overlap, make sure you cut that off. Just make sure it kind of fits inside without sticking up too far. If it does stick up too far, make sure you trim it down. Then take your commercial or heavy duty hole punch, and you're gonna punch out 4 half circles at the bottom of the can. This will allow the fuel to exit the side of the can and wet the carbon felt. Next, take your drill and a very small drill bit and drill a hole above each of the holes that you cut out at the top of the can. What this will do is it will allow air to escape the can once the pressure builds up. If you miss this step, the pressure will actually be so great that it will knock your pot off of your stove. Next, what we're gonna do is we're gonna wrap our carbon felt around the bottom of the tomato paste can and then kind of shimmy it into the cat food can. You may have to give it some turns, some twists, and get a screwdriver or your fingernail and shove that in there. It will be tight the first couple times, but it will loosen up. And that's pretty much it, but we wanna do one more thing. There is a lining in this tomato paste can that will smell terrible if you get it out on the trail. What I like to do is I like to put it through a boil, put 1/2 ounce of denatured alcohol in the middle of the cat food stove and just light the carbon felt. We're not lighting the middle of the tomato paste can, we're lighting the carbon felt. You can see it here, actually lit, and you can actually see, if you look inside, the lining burning off of that inner tomato paste can. Here's a look at it, what it looks like in the dark. You can see it's a nice blue flame, and you can see all the junk that burned off. So I just took a screwdriver and cleaned that all out, or you can use your sandpaper that you already have. Now this stove will boil about 2 cups of water in 3 minutes and 20 seconds. So after you cleaned out the cat food can, your stove is ready for the trail. Thanks everybody for watching. I'll see you in the next one.